Well, hello.
Hello.
Hi, Sunny. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine. So let's see. We have Shabaka here in the house. Hello, Shabaka. You're wide awake today. You're so tired you woke up at the end. Sorry. Oh, okay. Well, what end? Cool
Hey,
intro.
Shabaka.
Yes. Hey, I made it. No more lies. Yay, honey. Your moon is in Pisces.
We'll
So
say
you
extra prayers for you tonight.
okay. Oh, the last live. You're fine, honey. I don't even remember what happened the last live.
Yeah.
So, as people are coming into the chat, I'm gonna go ahead and clear our energies and take 3 deep meditative breaths before we begin. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So I hope everyone is doing well.
Shabaka, I learned how to go from private chat to the comments so I could see you. I'm a slow learner when it comes to computers.
That's okay. That's why you're here for practice, honey.
That's right. I have other talents.
Yeah. So I guess let's go ahead and get into it. So, what can you tell us about this new moon in Pisces?
Well, it's at 12 degrees, and over there on the West Coast, I think it's about 9:30 a.m. in the morning, and on the West Coast, more close to lunch. And it is on my Lion Mountain Healing website. There's a blog that gives some of the information, and part of that information has to do with some foods that maybe help detox metals and petroleum from your system, because petroleum is, all of our food chain is petroleum based, and that as our vibration raises and we are feeling more intensity of light coming on the face of the earth, um, we may feel sluggish and headachy and depression and have some physical symptoms. And something that helps with that is if we can be a little more aware of detoxing metals out of our system. And I wanted to just start with that this evening because herbs are the plant basis for man-made pharmaceuticals. So they indeed do have medicinal value, and you want to be careful. So one of the herbs that I have suggested is germander sage, and that can be very toxic in a high dosage or the wrong dosage. So I guess kind of wanted to mention some other foods that we need to all be integrating into our system a little more. Blueberries, barley, celery. You can't overdose on celery enough. But some of the herbs, you want to read about it. Burdock root, milk thistle. They do have healing and medicinal value, but I don't want you to just straight out start mixing it with maybe a man-made pharmaceutical that you already take. I know around here we're all trying to find more naturopath types of doctors as opposed to the medical ones. And if people do take statins and prescription medicines, there's a whole strategy for detoxing your system from that as well. And there'll be instances where you need to stay with what you are. So I guess I wanted to just do a little footnote that some of the herbs do act as a toxin if you overdose on them. So
Mm.
we're in Pisces. We're talking about psychedelic drugs, alcohol, illusion, seeing the world with rose-colored lenses on. And
Mhm.
if a heavy Pisces person is not a spiritual person, they 9 times out of 10 have they're a drinking person
Mhm.
because Pisces does, they're the empath, they're the psychic sponge. They feel what everybody's feeling around them. Some astrologers would argue that Pisces is the most psychic of all the zodiac signs. And so, like, and when I say drink too much, I mean, I've known plenty of functional alcoholics, that they
Mhm.
still thrive and prosper. But there's some connection there between the Pisces energy and alcohol or hallucinogenics in general.
Mhm.
It rules the dream. So in the natural zodiac chart, it's the 12th house. And I've always referred to that as the anxiety closet. It's where you stuff your fears. You stick your head in the sand in the 12th house. You don't want to deal with the past hurt or dreams can be disturbing if you have an active 12th house and transits there with Neptune. Um, so it's a really, I got really into some things here. So I'm going to ramble for a minute and hopefully it'll all connect.
Okay, yeah, we're listening.
So this new moon is conjunct Jupiter, and Jupiter was the original ruler of Pisces, and mostly in modern astrology, we look at Neptune as the ruler. So Neptune, Jupiter are the rulers of the sign of Pisces. And interestingly enough, it's so weird how you and I were just talking before coming on that close Neptune Jupiter conjunctions are when some of the most historic flooding has happened in the world. So
Mhm.
think about it. So Neptune is the god at the bottom of the sea that rules the seas, and
Mhm.
Jupiter rules the heavens. And so when you have those titans coming together, you have things on a grand scale because Jupiter expands whatever it's affecting. So if
Mhm.
the seas are swelling, or water is moving into places that it doesn't normally. Um, the planet Neptune was discovered in 1846 by a French scientist, and I'm probably going to destroy his name, but Laveau, something like that. And
Mhm.
in Paris, there's an observatory called Lalande, and it has really old historic records of the galaxy. And uh, it was believed that Neptune was discovered because Uranus has an irregular orbit. And so when it was at a certain point, they knew something was out there, but they weren't sure what.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of when it started. And Neptune in the skies right now is at home in Pisces. So anytime a planet is in its home, it's more powerful than normal. It transited into Pisces in 2011, and it will remain there until 2026. So I was just kind of surfing the net to find about flooding going on to see. You had mentioned out where you are that there had been rain and flooding, and Australia is reporting the worst floods in decades with a lot of deaths. And it is so this degree new moon is at 12 degrees of Pisces, and Jupiter is at 13. So that's a very close conjunction to make it even more powerful.
Mhm.
So last month, in the middle of February, there were history making floods in Brazil. Um, I wanted to try to connect the dots to cycles that maybe we have seen. And today is Mardi Gras. So I have an affinity for French and New Orleans. I've spent some time there. And it was interesting to me that it actually falls on the same day because, Neptune was discovered by a Frenchman in a laboratory in France. We're on a historic French festival that is just steeped in antiquity. It originally came out of Rome and Venice and made its way to France. And as colonies were developed here in the United States, that it's a festival for acknowledging the gods for your good luck and protection, and all kinds of cool things that we'll go into. But I'm going to try to stay on track with some of the chronology of these floods. So I think most everyone would remember Hurricane Katrina that wiped out good portions of New Orleans. That was in August of 2005. And I believe that the only reason it wasn't completely wiped out is because although Jupiter and Neptune were making an aspect, there was a conjunction of Uranus in Pisces that, I don't know if saved is the right word, but it certainly evolutionized that region in the United States with what happened afterwards and how they've rebuilt. Then the worst, it's said, the worst flood in the United States was of the Mississippi River, which that's, where it comes down to meet the Gulf of Mexico through New Orleans, Louisiana. And that was in April of 1927. It was conjunct when Neptune was in Leo. And so we talked quite a bit about Leo with our full moon a couple of weeks ago. And Leo does things on a grand scale. It makes things bigger. So just really interesting trends with Jupiter and Neptune and floodwaters, and the history that is made when certain planets line up, just like with the moon ruling the tides of the ocean and the gravitational pull. So it's all related. And since we're 98.9% water, we are emotionally and physically going to respond to these planets, in our reality. So, Pisces is the birth of spirituality, and just getting a little bit more into the history of Mardi Gras and kind of connecting to what we're doing now in the world has to do with masks, right? We've had this whole debate about masks in general. So I was curious about, where did masks all start back in our old world, right? And I found a couple of different references. The first on the caves in 7,000 BC in China. And their history connects it to ritual and ceremony. They represent like supernatural beings, and in ancient history that would have been like the gods or the titans of Olympus. Imagined figures. Its purpose can be to hide your identity. And so more and more in our current world, we're seeing more about ritual and ceremony. Mardi Gras is a ritual and a ceremony. It's a parade. It's real over the top indulgent. I was watching some of it through a YouTube channel that was a live camera. And you just look at the extravagance of these floats, which, back when it began, was like horse-drawn wagons, and
didn't they have? Well, I didn't mean to interject. Didn't they have the plague back then?
That played in there, I think, at some point. But I did see something about the plague because that's when people would wear masks too. But
Yeah.
I was connecting to like the ceremonial spiritual part. And even though, there's good and bad, like New Orleans is the home of Marie Laveau, who was the queen of voodoo. And when you say voodoo to somebody, it's like, oh, oh, it's just bad stuff. But, every religion and every culture can manifest their traditions for good and bad. The
Mhm.
Catholic Church, uh, you know, centuries ago had blood sacrifices. So you would never say, oh, the Catholic Church, the Pope, oh, now maybe, and maybe not. But my point is there's good and bad. And actually, voodoo was based on nature and
Mhm.
honoring nature. And she was quite the humanitarian. She was a healer and an herbalist. And she did what was called root work using the
Right.
roots of plants.
That's what a lot of Southern people call it, root work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a cross culture of Native American, Indian, and African spiritualism. So,
Mhm.
as those areas were coming from Europe and bringing their traditions, um, she had a beauty parlor and did hair.
Mhm.
She, married someone of very high stature who died. And then when she was buried, she died in 1881, and she was buried in a tomb in New Orleans. And there's this weird ritual that when people would go to visit her tomb, um, you would put an X on the tomb, turn your body 3 times, knock on the tomb, and go away. And if you came back and the X had a circle around it, it meant your wish would be granted. So there was this sort of old folklore. And then ultimately in 2015, they closed off her tomb to the public. There was a vandalism of it a few years before that where it was painted uh, pink. And
Pink.
there was this whole hubbub with city council about how they removed the paint. They used a power washer, and it destroyed part of the tomb. And so Marie Laveau, she was a really interesting uh, contradiction, because I think to um, someone that maybe hasn't steeped into the history there, this might seem like a bad person, but she was, in her day and age, a healer, and she helped people with illnesses with herbs.
Mhm.
So, anyway, I digress from that. The Mardi Gras itself started in the 17th and 18th centuries in Europe, and
Mhm.
came through the French house of the Bourbons. And, we have so much going on internationally in our world right now. And, when you start following these bloodlines back, we
Mhm.
continue that narrative here with our new moon is, um, so a Romanov, an Archduke Romanov, visited New Orleans, and as a homage to him, um, the festival made him made his colors of his house of Romanov the official colors of the Mardi Gras. So that is purple, which represents justice, gold represents power, and green represents faith. So whenever you see your king cakes or your decorations, you see a lot of purple, green, and gold. And that came from the Archduke Romanov, who
Mhm.
Melania Trump is actually a descendant of the Romanov house. And there's a
Mhm.
really interesting history about how that was, an heir to their kingdom that were murdered. And, just like one little girl got away who was able to carry the bloodline on. So there's so many interesting little paths we can take for more history that's kind of all divulging, into one big melting pot. And the bottom line is, I don't care, what creed, color, or who you are or where you're from, we all have a heart in our chest, and that brings us together. And Pisces
Mhm.
is very about empathy for others. Our theme continues from our full moon, and as we get into 2022, that there's more that binds us together than there is that separate us. And with the Uranus element there, we're talking about there's nothing wrong with expressing your individuality. You know, we're fighting sort of this boogeyman that would like to have us all robots, you know, and not have creativity and individuality. And being
Mhm.
Pisces is considered, you know, the most psychic of the zodiac. They're very creative people. And
Mhm.
so this is a really good way to do the new moon. And the other thing, you know, if you have seen them throw the beads and toys and candy and things off of these floats during the parade, those were a long time ago meant to symbolize like the fake gems of the queen and
Mhm.
to her loyal subjects. So, you know, when my brother was in the Navy down in that area, and our family would visit there. And of course, when I would see the beads in more of a modern context, it was about good luck. And
Mhm.
so I really didn't know it stemmed back to, you know, old Europe, um, uh, it represented, you know, like a gift to people for being loyal to,
Mhm.
I guess, paying the taxes and, you know, developing their land and producing, being productive people.
Mhm.
So these floats, they start, you know, they start every year after the Mardi Gras with the next year's float. And quite often they've come out of representation of um, Titans, or there's a lot of Greek and Roman mythology symbolized in this parade of Mardi Gras. And there are these groups, they're called crews with a K, Krewes. They're like provinces, and it's highly secret, you know, what each province is going to do for their theme for the floats every year.
Mhm.
There are secret societies directly related to these ceremonies and rituals during this time. And then, I was watching. I think it started 2 nights ago or whatever, and just watching people's comments. Um, that's right. Yes, mother and daughter, Marie and her daughter, and so somebody was talking about the two gods that they were waiting to see the float, and it was the gods of Orpheus, and I'm gonna probably hack this name, but he ended up marrying Eurydice, Eurydice, and not to bore you with
You're
a
a Dices or something like that?
yes, Eurydice. So
Oh.
this is a Greek tragic love story of sorts, where
Mhm.
Ophius is the son of Apollo. He rules music and poetry. Again, a very Piscean um, energy. You know, the fact that you would be reading poetry or old literature is very part of this energy that we're in. And so he meets Eurydice, and
Mhm.
she's a nymph who's very beautiful, and it's love at first sight.
Mhm.
And so also Orpheus was the god you see portrayed playing the lyre, the harp lyre.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Oh, he
so
was, like, mesmerizing the nymph,
he was
uh,
very charming. Yes.
like a
Yes.
very magical, like, forest type, I don't know, like
Yes.
like,
Yes.
dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, playing
Yes.
the harp.
Yes. Yes. Drawing her in.
Yeah, I could totally see it. Okay, go ahead.
um, well, it is believed that they fell madly in love, and they did get married. Um, there was a third party, a man who was very jealous of Orpheus and wanted to steal Eurydice from him.
Mhm.
And as he's trying to, his name is like, I want to say atheist, and that's not the right way, but it's like Aetheus. Thsus, something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of vowels.
Yeah.
And so Orpheus is able to foil this kidnapping attempt, and he's running with his wife through the woods, and her hand drops from his, and when he looks down, she has stepped on a poisonous snake and been bitten, and she's dying.
Mm-hmm.
Neptune in Pisces is about poisons, poison gases, um, oil, petroleum, mining, the gases from a mine, all that kind of stuff. And so
Mm.
she died, and he forever was completely. He didn't want to play music anymore. He fell into a really dark depression, and so he
Went
goes.
to drinking. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
sorry.
somehow or another. So his dad, Apollo, and Hades of the underworld were siblings, and
Mm.
they strike a deal that she could somehow or another. Orpheus was able to journey into the underworld to find
Mm-hmm.
where his deceased bride was. And Hades made a deal with him that said, okay, well, if you do this one thing, she'll be forever immortal with you. And that one thing was that when he came to get Eurydice, he could not look at her beauty until they reached the light. Like, right? So he's coming out of this dark underworld, wife in tow, but he cannot look back at her beauty until they are in the light.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets to the light, and he's so excited, he turns around to hug his wife, who's still in the dark. And that broke Hades' agreement. So Eurydice is forever bound to the underworld.
Oh my
And
God.
sort of the moral of the story is to be patient and keep your faith. So that's a really long way of, but you know, the spiritual movement was born under Piscean ages, right? So
Mm-hmm.
as all of these, there's a place in Florida people may be familiar with called Casadega. And
Mm-hmm.
Casadega was a Spanish explorer. And if you go there, it actually, you know, will tell you this little history of it's considered a spiritual community. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
city or a town. It's a spiritual community. I want to say like from 1780, something like that. And how it's developed over time is people who do psychic work, palmists, tarot readers, astrologers, herbalists, all these sort of esoteric, uh, metaphysical arts and sciences live on this commune during, well, they go up to New York during this when it's summer in New York, and when winter hits New York, they come down to Casadega in Florida. So they're
Mm-hmm.
kind of a transient community. I
Kind of like a
visit
gypsy.
very much so. You know, I think you
Gypsy.
could probably easily offshoot that to another settlement of colonies, or but it's all under this sign of Pisces ruling a spiritual awakening and spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just some of sort of the old history of um, um, Neptune, Pisces expressions in our history. So, you know, history repeats itself. You have to know the past to understand the future. So here we are in this, what I consider kind of a Wizard of Oz movie, where somebody's behind a curtain pumping smoke into a what was he, the wizard?
Box.
Yeah. And so,
into the atmosphere.
yes, the chemtrails and all
Yeah.
that good stuff. Um, one of the, where did I find some kind of interesting stuff about another interesting part of the mask is that when Neptune, I'm trying to, they, when they developed like the mask for coal miners, because Neptune does rule mining and everything, it was strong aspects to Neptune. Where did I find that? It, 1848. Prior to that, masks were cloth, and in 1848 they were made into more of a hard helmet with a light and able to protect um, from breathing in those gases,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
causing black lung, which is very common for miners. Um, when that was pretty much finalized as a standard to be used, it was 1919, and Neptune was in Leo. And so again, masks represent costumes, putting on other personas, performance. When you watch Mardi Gras, it's all about costumes and hiding your identity. And they have those masked balls where you don't know who you're dancing with, and there's this sort of element of mystery. And the whole time I was kind of digging up some information for us, kept thinking of that movie, Eyes Wide Shut. I don't know if anyone saw that. It was about a secret society, and their rituals, and it's frighteningly parallel to some of the off mainstream media information out there. So I wonder, when will we have the full light of day shed on some of this dark, murky water that we're trying to all navigate? And
Mhm.
uh, so, we Pluto moves very slow, and so where we're still dealing with aspects to Pluto under this new moon, he's god of the underworld. So anytime you have planets making close aspects, it makes the energy stronger, and in this case, um, bringing the light to some sort of secret or mystery.
Mhm.
So we continue with that, and I'm going to just kind of loosely remind everyone of what we're here on the brink of in the northern hemisphere, a change of season. And forgive me if you already know this story. I think it's a good one, so I like to repeat it. And that is Demeter and her daughter Persephone. And
Mhm.
it personifies the moral of a mother's love and what a mother will do for a child. So, they were immortal, and it's about taking the innocence away from young girls, because in ancient cultures, um, in Eastern Europe, which has a lot of attention on it right now, and we all need to take our rose-colored lenses off and try to see more things realistically, and not the story you're being fed on the television. And that is of a young Persephone was a young girl picking flowers in a meadow, and the earth cracked open. The god of the underworld, Hades, comes up and kidnaps her, rapes her, and takes her down to hell with him to be his what do I want to say, sex slave.
Right.
And so her mother, Demetra, and I'm not saying that right, I don't think, um, Dementor,
Dementor.
Dementor. So she was so furious that
Mhm.
her one and only daughter was kidnapped and, you know, um, exiled to this dark place and her innocence lost,
Right.
um, that she made the world barren. She made winter, basically, where she made all of the greenery die, and uh, no seed would grow. And so Hades and Zeus, were siblings, and they had to strike a deal so that the earth could still produce food to feed people. And
Mm-hmm.
so what they came up with is that 1/3 of the year, Persephone would live with Hades as his wife in the underworld, and 2/3 of the year she would come above ground to be with her mother, and that's where spring and summer and early fall are represented by foliage and growth and producing. Producing, and the winter is when everything goes to seed and is barren. So that's how one myth will tell us how seasons were developed. And also just to bring to light the intensity of a mother's love. All animals, humans, what a mother bear will do to protect. When you see in wildlife how the mothers will protect their
Children.
children, it's I feel like there's a lot of that kind of intensity coming up as well. And Neptune, as part of Greek philosophy, he could be represented in some depictions as a seahorse, or part man, part fish. And
Mm-hmm.
seahorses are the only species where the men give birth.
Mm-hmm.
So we're also seeing the again, male and female similarities, but yet different. So we're in an energy of humanity finding your common ground. Um, and it's okay to have those differing perspectives, and it just looks to me like over thousands of years of history, societies have had to constantly renew their right to be an individual, or their right to be free. And we
Mm-hmm.
are facing more of that with our Pluto um, placements, Uranus, Neptune. Um, Again, Neptune rules petroleum. You've seen a lot of talk about pipelines and oil, and just more and more how the food chain is affected by things that are toxic. And I think it's taking a toll on society with the obesity and all kinds of weird diseases that ancient people didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a disturbing time because somehow or another there's a poison in the air. There's a poison in mindsets of certain people. And I was seeing a film of one of the first Rothschilds, John C. Rothschild, in the 1800s. And, it was diabolical in that, we little people are just here to serve, to make sure he keeps in his money. And that chain, the Rothschilds, is what created the central banking system. So here we go with a restructuring of our banking system, and how it's all connected. And it's so interesting how what I believe is coming forth for all of us, unnaturally wealthy people, as far as like old family money and never having to work a day in your life. For us working people, it is about coming together with, we all have that instinct of mother's love, and wanting to nurture, wanting to I want to say run in packs. Humans are
Mm-hmm.
meant to be with their tribes and their people. And this sort of higher echelon control, anarchy or hierarchy of money has separated people, and made us have a mindset of defeatism, or just accept that, well, this is, how it is, and it's not. And
Mm-hmm.
the age of Pisces is all about that spiritual awakening for people to wake up and recognize that they are the grand manifester. And when you are willing to see things how they really are and not the spin of the rose colored lenses or the alcohol or the drug induced delirium, but just straight out, you've got your senses and you're seeing things clearly. We have to do that. We have to see that reality to be able to affect it. But as
Mhm.
long as we're sort of that Walking Dead series, I mean, there's some truth
Mhm.
to that, where between the electronics and the food, we've all kind of been defeated to a certain monotone existence. And we
Mhm.
are wonderfully, creative people. We all have a heart that beats in our chest and a mind that has invented miraculous things. And this energy is to help us remember our instincts, remember our instincts. And again, looking inward as opposed to outward for guidance or leadership, because there is no leadership right
Mhm.
now. I
We
mean,
only choose to abide by these leaders because of, what was
a, mi-
being
a
fed to
mindset.
us,
Yeah,
yeah, through a visual perspective, but really there's no leader. We're
right.
the leaders,
We're
you know?
moving into a period in history of self governance.
Mhm.
And, it's just so interesting to see the different scripts. And it's real important that we keep a real open mind and not believe anything that you see or are told. You know,
Or just cancel your, cable,
yeah, yeah.
subscription,
So yeah, it's a very interesting time. And the fishes, the symbol of Pisces and the fishes swimming upstream, that's what we're dealing with. We're in our
Mhm.
anxiety closet trying to navigate our fears and our denials and things that suck and can be horrible concepts, but are the truth.
Mhm.
And that whole Rothschild sort of bloodline, there's like 13 family bloodlines that have had all of this all worked out for eons. And they're hoping that us little worker bees will never figure that out. And I think that under some grander province, people are waking up to figure out that certain things just don't make sense. And if they don't make sense, they must not be true,
Mhm.
because the truth has to make sense. And so, but I really was really getting disturbed. I've gotten very disturbed about how manipulated our environment and food chain is. I mean, even soy-based, plant-based types of foods, they're just packaged that way. It doesn't mean that they are. It's just so difficult, because really, unless you see what you're eating from where it's coming from, we don't know. And if
Yeah,
you're
same
not,
thing with meat too. It's
yeah,
like, where's the meat coming from? They say USDA prime, like grass-fed beef,
which is another government agency. All of these
But get
agencies.
this, I just recently shopped at Trader Joe's because my kids are meat eaters. The beef came from Australia. And I'm like, why is the beef coming from a different country? Why isn't it coming from America when Trader Joe's is in the United States? Is it because like they're not trading within, I don't know, this country, or like it's I don't
Well,
understand.
another part of Jupiter being co-ruler of Pisces and involved in this new moon configuration. And I'm going to dance here a little bit, but I want to put it out there because it's very important that we all get really real and open-minded, and not keep um, accepting what we're being fed on so many
Mhm.
levels, right? Spiritually, literally, socioeconomically. So Eastern Europe another part of the Jupiter Neptune transits from history deals with the breakup of the Soviet Union. So
Mhm.
that's kind of why I go down this rabbit hole with Jupiter Neptune as a discussion. It's all about international countries, international cultures.
Mhm.
So the one that starts with you, which has a lot of focus right now on mainstream media,
Mhm.
is never really had its borders defined. And I'm just going to leave it at that. To like, if you're interested in that, there's plenty of good information out there about how all of those provinces and countries have morphed over the decades. And this is where I come back to, but we all have a heart, right?
Mhm.
We might
Mhm.
be in a different country, we might speak a different language. We are all connected by, we all have a heart in our chest that beats. We all have
Mhm.
family we care about. We all, have a skill, many skills, creativity. These are the ties that are our common ground. And those that would try to enslave us would like us to believe that we're all totally separate and different. No way can we be, friends and comrades and connected. So it's very divisive how there's a script to try and pit us against each other. If one thing after another, it's one thing after another. You can look at it over decades of history, just in my little lifetime or whatever. But this is coming to a head, and it's exciting. And we want to rah rah for bring the light to the dark, bring Persephone out from the underworld. Be productive, be planting our seeds and harvesting and growing and on every level in our consciousness.
Mhm.
So the media is spinning this big bad guy is doing terrible things to these little pitiful people. And so if you look into the history of, I think you would call it Caesarian,
Mhm.
these are some really bad folks. And
Mm.
our current potato head, flashbang, whatever you want to call him, has over a $40 billion investment in heroin. Okay.
Mhm.
So we're really crossing any kind of um, lines with anybody looking out for us worker bees, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's all the money and control and the power. And there's this one oil company. And again, it's so weird that I keep when I research Neptune lunation, to keep coming back to oil companies, to petroleum. Well, there's this one huge petroleum company that ironically on the board of directors is every son of every major leader. Okay. Now they don't have any experience as oil company executives, but they have very powerful, wealthy parents who can place them in strategic positions to keep things controlled.
Mm.
So, the guy who is the head of uh, Ukraine, Zelensky, I came across a video where in 2005 he was the winner of their version of Dancing with the Stars.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. His name is Zelensky, and so
Well,
then
is he Piscean?
I didn't have a chance to try to dig out birth data for him, but he would definitely be an interesting to study. So then he becomes a producer of a TV series in his country that
Mhm.
shows him as the president. This is all about mindset and the media and how it
Right.
feeds us a script, right? It's
Mhm.
also about voting machines. So, who is president there is Zelensky. And for
Mhm.
the last 10 years, he's been, getting his people ready to see him in this position.
Right.
So he's involved with all this big money and oil company and really doesn't care about the worker bees that, he is ruler of. So the, yeah, the, these events that we have been hearing about, one of the pictures of a big explosion is actually a picture, and they can put them side by side, from 2015 in another scuffle. Okay.
Mhm.
So the media has used basically a 7-year-old picture to try to tell us that's what's happening now. And that's what I
Mhm.
mean about when we're watching this stuff, to try and see it as a movie and stay really flat, open-minded, because your mind's going to be blown with what the real truth is, I believe, when this all comes to light, and it
Mhm.
really will very soon. And but there are these diabolical structures that produce bioweapons and study how to gain a function research. And our prominent falsy guy has millions of dollars invested, right?
Mhm.
So if you were leader of your country and you had compassion and compare and and were concerned for your people, would you want at your back door 10 or 11 or 12 biolabs that only function would be to hurt people? No, of course not. Mother
Mhm.
bear, mother's love. You would never let that happen to your children. So if you have the technology and the intelligence to strategically destroy and dismantle those structures, wouldn't you do it? Of course
Yeah.
you would. So I know here in the United States, the media would have us believe that we're at war. Okay, we're in an information war. I've been watching videos of people sitting in their living rooms over there where they're talking about the US's propaganda machine. And you know how CV has totally disappeared. Have you seen anything about CV lately? No, because it was a narrative. So
Mhm.
this is all this Pisces, rose-colored lenses, wanting to bury our head in the sand. We don't want to deal. It's just too overwhelming. It's too hard. Here, give me another beer. you know, and so this energy begs us to wake up, take off the rose colored lenses, see things for the truth that they are, so that we can, you know, be our creative, sovereign selves, that we can bring up our families in safe environments, going back to good homegrown food that haven't been manipulated with hormones.
Mhm.
There's this John Rothschild documentary was all about a slow process to show people that shooting poison into their kids is for their good and a good thing. And if you do it slow enough, you know, they'll never see it coming. And then it was like
So
19.
this is the thing. If the Rothschilds wanted to manipulate people and poison people very slowly, what if they just kill off the whole population? And
Well,
then they're just the only ones that are living, and then what I mean, like, is it so they can just have the whole planet to themselves? Is that because
I
they're not gonna be making money off of that? Because, this is the thing that I get from my doctor that I was renting from at one point.
mhm,
He saw us as working capital.
yeah. Well, they
Yeah.
have to keep enough people alive to do the work, right? To uh,
Well, what if they underestimated their little calculations and they hired the best scientists, to say, "Okay, we just need to tame it down to this number population." But, oh shit, we kill
yeah,
off every damn body
I
and there ain't
know,
nobody here to man the ship. And then who are they
yeah,
gonna hire to do their dirty work? Or, then what is life? Is their life worth living? Like, what is it that they're gaining from, this wealth that
yeah.
they're, achieving,
I'm with
because they
you.
have more than enough, money to go around, and, like, what else do they need? I don't understand.
Well, I think there might be also assistance from other species. we're
Oh
not
yeah,
alone.
okay, I get that. I get that. So yeah, there are like there's light beings
Yeah,
that has like, this higher conscious awareness where, you know, it's a good way of living, right? Like living in love and light
yeah.
and being peaceful, sentient beings. And then there's the dark force entities. It's like Star Wars, right?
Well, there was this chatter about William Shatner and Star Trek, and like where it seemed very unreal when that series all came out, that it was really very connected. And I think we're going to be seeing even more of these things that we thought were, because Neptune is all about fantasy
Mhm.
and science fiction and things you cannot believe, and the
Well, it's
imagination.
definitely like going towards the matrix. I mean, which pill are you gonna take? Are you gonna take the placebo or are you gonna take the one that's gonna mess you up?
Well, I noticed that when I started trying to look at mainstream news with the eye of this is a movie script, they're really very comical. I mean, they
Mhm.
don't believe themselves what they're trying to say. They're starting to kind of choke, so to speak. And there's awakening. There's an awaking up of these people that are finally figuring out that being paid millions of dollars a year to be an actor or actress reading a script into a TV
And
camera.
then they kill him off.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
there's sort of Pluto will make you reconsider your moral values. So,
right.
we have to be in the underworld to ever appreciate what the light has to offer, because there's a lot of people who would never believe some of the darkness and the diabolical things that happen behind the scenes. And
Mhm.
so I'm frustrated because, and if I could speak more clearly or frankly, but I don't feel like I'm not comfortable saying it like it is. Um, but those people who do question and don't believe what they're being fed are ridiculed, persecuted, and what I'm waiting for all of us is a little redemption, where we've known something's off. We know that what we're seeing is not real, but we don't
Mhm.
really know, that's what this whole energy is about, is like being in this fog, feeling somewhat adrift. We are disconnecting from the matrix, or the matrix is being dismantled. And so where generations of people have lived off of this mindset of always, looking outside for their sustenance and for guidance.
No, you gotta look within,
Yes,
just
that's what spiritual awakening is you
Mhm.
trust your own instincts. And as crazy as it may sound, if it's something you believe in your heart, then it's probably right on target. And that's where I kept feeling like all of this debate and who should do this and who should be doing that and we should this and that. We all have a heart on our chest beating, and
Mhm.
you know whether you had kids or not, there's still that humane instinct to want well for others. And so I I'm waiting for the perp walk, you know what I mean? Where all of these heads of whatever, finally get their humility, because we still have that Capricorn, Mars, Venus, Pluto energy. It's moving very slow. So it's still under that influence of, Vulcan wanting to put, the betrayers or the traitors on public to humiliate, right? And
Mhm,
so
mhm.
we're still in that kind of energy. And um, you know it's just unfortunate, the judgment that gets passed without any foundation of truth or not, on all levels, whether it's in our um, current events we're talking about, or personal relationships, or in workplaces. Just having to deal with the masks that people put on, and the sort of lunacy that goes on out of ego, and here we are just trying to you know, raise our kids and be healthy, and you know, I like to think we're all on some sort of spiritual journey where we want to know why we're here. What is our hidden gifts and talents that we could share? You know, it could be something as simple as baking bread, you know, for your
Uh,
community.
You know what? You were talking about bread. I don't mean
Yeah,
I was watching this Turkish lady who makes these amazing bread rolls.
we have a
Like,
Turkish bakery up the street. It's wonderful.
oh my God. I was like, look at this lady baking bread. She's like, it's so simple. You can cook it in 10 minutes. And I'm like,
You know, the thing that's hard, and I feel like everyone that's in our forum here knows exactly what the deal is. They know.
hmm
Here's where we got to all come together and figure out how do you know, because we're also surrounded by a lot of really hard-headed people that would never believe what we're talking about, right?
Right.
They've been sold a mindset about a certain person being a horrible person or another person being, you know, just a wonderful person, instead of, you know, putting the facts together, connect the dots, look at the history, follow the money. What was that movie? Follow the money. If you
hmm
look at these big companies and who's on the board and, you know, who they're related to or who they're married to, it's all a big, I want to say Ponzi scheme, you know, or it's all a big, you know, insider trading scandal, you know what I mean?
Well, as a matter of fact, I did a little bit of research because I was looking into the banking systems. And as you know, banks, are stock, publicly stock traded companies. And it's kind of ironic that you would see like how many percentage of shares that a certain elitist group actually owns, but there's other entities that are not mainstream that I've recognized that actually are in a very high position because they oppose the views of the elitist groups that we know of that are
Right.
seemingly bad. So I was actually kind of like shocked to see that. And so
I think
I
it's
don't
the
know.
law. It's the law of physics because, um, you know, a pendulum always has to swing back the other way, right?
Mhm.
So if we've
Mhm.
had at least a millennium of negative Martian, masculine, bloodletting kinds of energy, and that pendulum has to swing back to the opposite polarity, the feminine, the
Mhm.
nurturer, the mother, the child bearer, the community. And I think that's what we've been witnessing for a couple of decades anyway, is this slowly turning towards the feminine energy where people are, like, I was reading how many of these news anchors have left these big stations because they just can't take shelling out the lies anymore, you
Mhm.
know. And it was showing them behind the scenes. They have the makeup artists, like you know, like Hollywood, like they're an
Mhm.
actor and they're getting ready to go on stage to read a script. And that's what, you know, human beings sitting in their living room or coming home from work, or, you know, are looking towards this box, the television, um, for information, you know, whether
Mhm.
it's stock market or, you know, weather or whatever. It's weird to me some days what they pick on. Lately there seems to be a lot of murder suicide stories around me.
Oh, from what I know, there's an increased level of syphilis that's going around in my community.
Hey, you know,
Just to divert the
yeah,
attention for a hot
you know,
minute,
this will give you a kick, I think. But I do some Medicare insurance work, and the highest rate of STDs in a study was in nursing homes
Why? Are
because,
they doing
yeah, they're like, hopping from bed to bed in the nursing home, evidently.
Oh my
Isn't that
god.
weird? So
That is that I Wow.
I can officially confirm that I gave my notice in my current job. My last day
Mhm.
is Friday. I couldn't be more excited. I'm taking a week off and then start another new exciting chapter. So I go
Mhm.
through that to say I've been cleaning in my office and I
Mhm.
have been trying to find things. And I came across this is Fate Shifters. This is a astrology deck.
Oh, that looks interesting. I like
And what
that.
they do is they have the tarot and astrology. It's actually 100 cards. So I wanted to bring
Mhm.
this out for us tonight um,
Okay.
because honestly, the energy is just so deep. I'm doing my best to impart it, but it's really deep. And we're just going to have to use our tools to slow down, pay attention, um, try not to anesthetize. Um, I mean, there's plenty of functional anesthetized people.
Mhm.
No, plenty. But my
Mhm.
point is, it's like we all have to really just make it a regular um, habit to sharpen our own instinct. And when you hear a story, coming at you or whatever, like I have told you many times, I wear a tin hat, and I heard a joke recently where the only difference between a conspiracy theory and it being a conspiracy is 9 to 12 months. And,
Mhm.
we're starting to see where a year ago, where people were so quick to judge that, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Well, it's actually coming out. And that's where it comes down to you've got to discern for yourself what feels true. And Pisces energy is all about um, uh, your instinct, your psychic faculty. And let's see, I think in my article I talk about some of the stones. Oh wow! So the Three of Swords jumped out.
Oh,
And what are we
wow.
talking about? We are all connected by a heart. We all have a
Mhm.
heart in our chest. This is heartbreaking to see people, institutions, and places that we've believed in all our lives have not been true.
Mhm.
And there's going to be a certain amount of anger and feeling of betrayal and confusion. And I believe thus those of us that gather in forums like this are here to be sort of the one steadfast element that people can get information and find sort of a comfort of some sort that no, you're not crazy. And
Mhm.
this has been probably one of the most huge um, uh, crimes perpetrated on mankind that we've ever lived through.
I would
So,
have to agree because it's kind of eye-opening to and you wouldn't think that this would happen, and we would hear about this through Nostradamus,
yeah.
as a child, we would hear these prophecies and things like that, but, they say that in our lifetime, we would see something like this, and here we are. So, it's like,
And so we can
well
either be really scared and feel insecure or get really excited and be like, Xena, the warrior goddess, or Hercules, the Titan. We have to find our inner Olympian and Titan to get through all this. And that's why I think myth and ancient history does give us insight that there's been millions of people before us that have lived through societies going through the same kinds of craziness.
yeah.
So,
Mhm.
they're just not here in the, flesh and blood for us to talk to. And, well, what'd you do? Okay. I didn't want to take any upside down cards because I accidentally dropped this deck when I was cleaning up. So, uh,
Okay.
some things may or may not have turned upside down by accident, and I didn't go through to turn them all right up. So 3 of Cups, here we
Mhm.
are healing. We're finding brotherhood and sisterhood with each other and our emotions. And that's the element we all have to hold on to, is we're all connected. It's real simple in life. Oh, I love this. So here we're celebrating. We're celebrating the birth of a new season. And this is going to be more authentic. This is going to be more healing for everyone. It doesn't come without its pain and the heart opening,
Mhm.
which I
It
like.
was hurtful, but
Yeah,
now, it's a
yeah.
time for celebration. That's
And,
good.
and there's been a bit of, hermit work, and being
Yeah,
a hermit.
sitting in solitude.
Right. And here's what Jupiter rules Sagittarius.
Mhm. What is that, temperance?
They're calling it Sagittarius. This is the
Oh.
archer. This is the seeking freedom, seeking higher spiritual information.
Mhm. That's a beautiful, illustration of Sag
This is
energy.
I mean, look how big this deck is.
Mhm, mhm.
It's 100 cards.
I like it.
So I'm just kind of going through here talking, and whatever comes out is what I'm showing you. And here comes Virgo,
Okay.
cleaning up, cleaning up,
Clean up
so
in her bikini. What the heck? She's got her little bush in one.
she, she's the maiden virgin.
Oh,
And this one
sorry.
wanted to come. Actually, both of these came out, and this may be how we're all feeling. We feel hurt and deflated, and
Yeah,
you
I
know,
would say I feel
what do
like
we
that right
do?
now.
And this is where, I mean, I've done a lot of reading and research about depression because, um, I've fought it all my life. My parents have fought it. I've had a couple of suicides in my family line from it. And so I feel like, number one, it's not all our fault. If we've
Mhm,
been fed poisons in our food chain and been given medicines that we're told that would make us feel better, they're actually just more poison. Um, those are the things that do cause depression. If we are being bombarded by radio waves that our own electromagnetic field has not adapted to. I mean, animals are adaptable. We certainly are evolutionizing and adapting, but it's a process. So we
mhm,
can't give up. We can't give up to that process of evolution, even though it might make us feel bad or mad or all of them. And so it's really weird to think about off-planet societies and that there are other species amongst us here to assist. I know I've talked about this before. I love this. Here's the Fool. This is
mhm,
having your faith.
mhm,
Walk off the cliff. You have everything you need. Um, Sylvia Brown did a book about her life in hypnosis, and it's called Ancient Secrets and Mysteries of the World. So,
mhm,
over 20 years through hypnosis, she gathered a lot of files, and she started connecting that all different patients would, under hypnosis, um, talk about similar experiences, like how the pyramids were built, or what is the Bermuda Triangle, or Easter Island. And one of the chapters in there speaks to aliens amongst us.
mhm.
And I love this because I think I've seen a couple. I know I worked with one, and I'm not being facetious, but the way
I
she
think that one that walks really funny.
they shuffle because they don't know the gravity on this
Mhm,
plane, right? And their hair is like really synthetic looking.
mhm,
And where they're from, they have gills. So there's usually something unusual in the sinus area.
mhm,
And you know, I just feel like if we can transform all of this Piscean, psychic, spiritual energy into like binoculars of, like when you see someone or something, or
Mm-hmm.
someone is trying to present you with something, to pause, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pause. And what does your first voice say? Is that a truth? Is that a lie? Is that real? Um, and I think that, I guess my first real boyfriend that I was mad about, there's several things that I learned from that relationship. And one of the things he always said that comes to me now to say is, you have to keep your sense of humor because people are really very funny. And so when you see, and maybe y'all can help me where this came from. I don't know where this developed, where they're doing these Instagram and video little short clips about someone they'll call a Karen. And it's someone like having a hissy fit over something really little. And I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
how that ever got started, but
Mm-hmm.
that kind of energy is someone who's really, really scared. They're terrified. They've lost control of their narrative or what's going on. And so they'll project. We've talked about this before. Well, people will project their anger or whatever it is on you, and you're perfectly, just minding your own business, trying to do your thing. And so that's where we are, is everyone and everything that we're presented with, to just take a breath, pause, keep your sense of humor, because it might be really ludicrous. I know at this office I'm leaving, it is like a whole nother reality. I mean, it is like some kind of weird place that I've never seen anything like it before in my life. And it's had me sort of jacked up for a while. And I finally have found my sense of humor, because God, I'm getting out of there, and so grateful for that. That you have to laugh at people that are so controlling and so paranoid and so in their ego. It's all
Mm-hmm.
about them, their power, their money, their control. And it can be really, really, really challenging when you're just trying to do your task and don't want to be harassed by anybody, much less, the word narcissist keeps coming to mind, but I hate that word. And I think psychologists will tell you there's a lot of different manifestations of narcissism, and it's not just one blanket definition across the board, and
Right. There's different types of narcissism.
on that we have Aquarius.
Oh, she looks beautiful. She looks like she's in that skater outfit. Ice skating outfits or maybe ballroom dancing.
Yes, and revolutionizing herself. I think we're all also in an energy of, reinvent your interest, reinvent something. One of the things a counselor has told me in the past about depression and how to, try to manage it or get through it is, think about when you were a child, and what were things that you enjoyed, genuinely enjoyed as a child, and try to rebirth that as an adult.
Mhm.
So, remember a few years back where these adult coloring books came out?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a meditation to de-stress. And here's the star, promises fulfilled. It's all going to be okay. We've got to be
Mhm.
willing to see things clearly without the rose colored lenses on, and tune into our own instinct. That's what this new moon is about. Um, reinvent something. If you have had a project, oh, here we go. All of these are appropriate. This is strength,
Mhm. Mhm.
taming your ego. So, this is all about slowing down and not having that pre-recorded mindset reaction. To stop and pause at everything, to question it. and recognize that the energies vibrating here in our reality are unlike any we've ever experienced. They're
Mhm.
intense, they can be dark, they can be, they can provoke pain and upsettedness. But if we can keep our eye on the goal of, Jupiter is all about the truth. Um, Neptune, he had his Titan that he bammed on the Earth's floor and the water came forth. So water
Mhm.
represents emotions. And, when we're talking about all these floods and everything, doesn't it, wherever it is flooding or people are dealing with that, doesn't it remind us of, Mother Nature and who's really in control? Because massive volumes of water destroy. And so, um,
Well, I think the whole issue is that we need to take care of Mother Earth.
yeah,
Earth is a living, a breathing energy. And so I really feel like, if it's earth, air, water, the food or minerals, resources, we all need to take care of it. If we don't take care of these resources that we have on the planet, then Mother Earth is going to bring up the waters or bring hurricanes
that,
or
that whole cycle, the pendulum swings back and forth.
mhm, mhm.
It's nature. It is. There is a positive and negative charge in every living thing. And I guess the train of thought I kind of got off of that I wanted to all of us to brainstorm on is how do we help others take off the rose-colored lenses without assuming any kind of arrogance or um, keeping our ego in check, but honestly trying to trigger people to just pay attention and question, you know,
Mhm.
and especially with the older generation, like people in their 70s and 80s, they are just programmed to do what they're told.
Oh, yeah, like my mama, like, she's just scratching the surface of 70, not really 80s yet, but just newly 70s, and,
Yeah.
she's like, she took her vaccinations and, she's like, "Well, you need to go get your booster." I was like, "No, you go get your booster." You
Leave my booster alone.
Yeah, I'm like, "No, you do you, honey,"
Oh, and
And,
look,
yeah, and so she's always about like, "No, government is gonna help you," I was like, "No, they're not helping you, they're doing
using
something
us.
else."
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, the stock markets, she's like, "Yeah, you gotta go get the buy put stock now, but take it out later." I was like, "No, just don't deal with the stock market." Yeah. Um, so, there's a lot of like, differences, between me and my mother. And she has her perspective, and I have my perspective. And so, in that sense, for myself, instead of, just be neutral, right? Not really put my judgments on the information that I'm receiving, but
Mhm.
just observe the information. I don't have to agree or disagree. It's just information.
Right.
I could really act or react. Act or don't act to it. And that's how energy is. So yeah, so I think that generally speaking, what is that?
Pluto.
Oh, Pluto, yeah.
Pluto is way underestimated with how he impacts our lives.
Mhm. Well,
And
he's been sitting around for a long time.
yeah, he really is. He's part of this whole reconstruction, deconstruction, you know, all of this stuff you see in all these different regions about moral values, how our kids should be taught. What role does government have in medicine? Um,
Right, it's like, putting too much, into governments, you
control.
know, to protect us. We should, just
Oh,
we should actually localize this stuff instead of, like, having it,
Here's Apollo, the sun
Oh,
god. So
now,
getting good old sunshine is what nature wants you to do whenever possible.
yeah, that's so funny because my mom's name is Sun.
Oh, really? Well, it's really interesting um, how we can fall back into patterns. It's just easier. It's just
Mhm.
easier to keep pedaling your bike the same way. It's harder to be engaged, in your heart and what you're feeling, and trying to be true to expressing that when challenged. I mean, people don't generally go out and try to antagonize other people, but if
Mhm.
you're in environments where people are putting their stuff on you, you have no choice but to react, and hopefully, in a calm, cool, collected way.
Mhm.
Sometimes I
Mhm.
think the universe gives us plenty of opportunities to check our ego and check how our responses are to people. And so these are really very, I want to say, esoteric times. Like, for anyone who's dabbled with metaphysics or spirituality, man, you just have leaps and bounds ahead of people that have bought hook, line, and sinker into the narrative of, you know, traditions. And have really gotten weird, it seems like, about, just like when we talked about Valentine's Day, and the root of that myth is not romantic at all.
Mhm.
But our society has spun it into um, something it isn't. Or
And that's what I think, and we talked about this before we went live. So, in the distant past, all of us were not scribes, and history was passed down through word of mouth. Some people, they were not, they couldn't write or read, but until there is a permanent record where it could be translated properly, then you'll know the truth. But the truth has been diluted over many lifetimes, throughout history. And just like, with the stuff that's going in with our school systems, with our kids, and how they're kind of changing how they're doing math or
I know,
actually
spelling.
history,
Yeah.
things like, yeah, things are changing. And I'm like, what in the world is this? Like, what are they teaching our kids,
Whoa.
and then it feels as if, you have to do homeschooling for them these days, You can't really trust the public education systems anymore.
And that's all related to huge lobbyist unions and money, right?
Mhm.
Follow the money. Here we
Mhm.
have the Five of Pentacles.
Yeah.
So a little bit, the spiritual journey is the light in the church there, that stained glass window. And there's a lot of souls out in the cold, can't quite find their way. And the universe, that tower card and Pluto, that the universe will take care of it. If you do nothing at all,
Just
um,
sit and observe.
mhm, things will come in their time and the way they should be. Um, so it's very interesting. I'm very encouraged. I think that if you had to look at society as a whole and it was a download of a computer program, I think we're about 90% downloaded. I see a whole lot more people, not complying with the narrative and speaking out, this and that, and laughing. Laughter is very
Mhm.
healing, even as tragic as a lot of this stuff is. Um, there's a prediction of this is the world. So the
Mhm.
world is a completed cycle, having all the tools we need to embark on our next chapter.
Mhm.
And the main thing that I keep seeing sort of around me is, and it's that MK Ultra, right? It's the
Mhm.
whole mindset, programming, and it's the programming that's wrong, right? And so it's very easy to slip in back into that. Your initial reaction when you hear some horrible thing is like, oh, but then when you think about it, it's like, where's it coming from? Follow the money. Who benefits financially from what you're being told? So
Mhm.
is it true? And one of the predictions is that we'll all have the heck or the bejeebers scared out of us here with a threat of nuclear war or collapse of the banking system. And again, it's a manipulation to keep us under the boot, right?
Well, there that manipulation backfired with the truckers convoy and how they were closing people's bank accounts down. Now they're pulling money out of the bank systems.
It's really, I found myself watching those convoys and just smiling. I think it's a wonderful display of patriotism. And,
Mhm.
the whole, people can't be repressed but so long, and
Yeah,
the
there's like, oh, so much you're gonna take, just by complying. Yeah.
and Jupiter rules the court system, laws and the court system. So
Mhm.
that's all going to be litigated, that whether in Canada you call it unconstitutional, or I know they have a little bit different system than here, but um, you've already started seeing some judgments come out of courts that are undoing the wrong, and
Mhm.
the thing is, that whole moral of the story of Orpheus and Eurydice is be patient and keep your faith. And that's where it gets a struggle because you don't see anything really changing. uh, you know
That's honey, you've been with me for on my channel for a long time, and that's my favorite word, patience.
oh, well, these two just came out together, and it's Two of Cups and Mars. So
Oh,
maybe it's a
is
part.
Mars finally coming? Like
This can be temper tantrums. And, uh, we talked a little bit about this with our last full moon, telling somebody off,
Mhm,
um,
mhm,
or figuring out the patience to not tell them off.
mhm.
So, oh, here, he wanted to come behind here. The King of Pentacles.
Yeah, slow and steady wins the race. No play.
So this,
At least they're coming in correct, right? Eventually,
right.
they'll make it back around where they're coming in, sovereign, and they're doing things the right way by the books and being trustworthy and reliable.
And that does
So
take patience, and it does take discernment, and it does take
mhm,
using our psychic faculty. And these are all sort of exercising muscles that we have forgotten about.
mhm.
I kind of equate it to you sit around all winter, not doing a whole lot, and then, oh, look, oh, I love it. Neptune had to come out for us.
Oh,
This,
here he comes.
and
I feel like he's gonna stir up some stuff, though. That's the look on his face.
it can be expressed good and bad. It can be
Mhm,
expressed by slowly poisoning a society to just be numb,
mhm.
or beating that titan on the earth and letting the floodwaters flow. So
I'm not gonna lie, with the floods that happen here in my state where I'm at, I felt drunk. Like, do you get like how, like, when you get a good rain
yeah.
and you just, like, feel so tired and you just wanna go to bed, but
Yeah.
you don't know what to do with yourself. You still got stuff to do, and you're like, "Oh my gosh," you had your coffee, and you're like, "This ain't
Yeah.
doing it." That's what I felt like, and there was nothing I was, doing other than the caffeine, like and
It
even the
does.
caffeine wasn't even doing it for me. I was like, "Wow, you win." You win.
And, I think that's okay to give in. I mean, we don't rest enough. Part of this whole
Well, I
narrative,
think the time change or whatever we do with this whole, like, time change thing,
yeah, that's
it
coming.
hasn't happened yet, but it sure needs to happen now because
I think it's the 13th.
is it soon? Because it needs to happen, like, now. Like,
That is about, let's
or
see,
doesn't it
four, it's
happen
about
around Easter?
11 days.
Oh, well, thank goodness, it's
Yeah.
soon.
And Easter is kind of late this year, like the 14th or something of April.
Oh.
So, the thing that I'm trying to process with all of these traditions and beliefs. Oh, wow. Oh, we had the world and now we have the womb. Very similar.
Mhm.
Again, about
Mhm.
completion, because I'm putting the cards that I picked over here.
She came out again,
She
didn't
came out
she?
again. So I've always called that like the cosmic egg and that whole
Mhm.
Pluto regeneration. Like we we have a chapter in our life and everything gets burnt down and there's that pause
Renewal.
before you can rise
Grow
up.
again. Mhm.
And the thing that I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but you said Easter, and um, you said Easter, and it made me think of all of the sort of scripts that we have, and could that just be another sort of diabolical manipulation of some satanic ritual?
Yes, honey. Okay. I think I said this before. I was raised Catholic. My dad's Roman Catholic, and the one and only time I took my son to church was on Easter. And I was really upset because I've been paying my tithes to this church for the longest time. It was the first church that was established in North Carolina, and they recently remodeled it, and it's a grandiose, large Catholic looking building. Oh, there's 2 of them. Wow.
Yeah, I knew I
Int
wasn't crazy.
interesting. Well, that's an extra.
And there's a purple
Maybe there's
star.
2 worlds.
Yeah. The coloring is a little different on them.
It's an
The number
extra.
3, so mind, body, spirit. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, no, that's
I had to see
fine.
them side by side.
So, basically with Easter, I just got a little upset because I know how much money I put into this church. And then I didn't even have a seat, for me and my son, to sit at this new church, and it became more of like a donation, uh, plate for just feeding money to this church, I just
Follow
and
the money.
yeah, and in times of need, this church didn't help me. I was, and I was going to church, for, the parables and seeking guidance from God, because that's what I knew at the time. And after that incident, I decided not to go to church anymore.
I think we're going to find out a lot about mega churches that are just going to be horrendous.
I believe that the Bible was manipulated.
That was in a documentary about, you know, man wrote the New Testament, and the Old Testament and the Dead Sea Scrolls are closer to actual, you know, documentation of people living during those times.
Mhm.
Um, I used to do this workshop called Astrology in the Bible, and I live in a Southern Bible Belt. Astrology
Mhm.
most of my life has been frowned upon. I've always been considered a freak or a witch or something horrible. And
Right.
but in my heart, I know that for me it is a art form and a language that I resonate to, and I would never use it for anything dark or manipulative or negative. It's to me a language, and it has helped me express things for myself and others that other words don't express, even if you don't know what Jupiter conjunct Neptune means. When you can tell people, well, there's historic making flooding and there's, visions of other worlds, I mean, that gets more of a meaning in someone's subconscious somehow. And in this workshop, I would go through the Bible and pick out all the places where, these prophets and different characters would use astrology for good. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's not all, I mean, there's good and bad in everything. And, you know, what is it about the ego with some people that you can point out to them positive things, but they have a mindset that, oh no, no. Like I had an aunt that you couldn't even finish the question or the sentence and she'd be saying no. And I'd go, let me
Didn't
finish.
want to even hear
Yeah.
what you had to say.
So whatever that fear is of unblocking your, again, that childlike curiosity, that we lose as we go through
No, we
crapola.
always have to continue living our life questioning things,
So
Yeah.
this is an
Walking away
eclipse,
to find a missing cup, really.
right? Not accepting status quo or
This isn't good enough. I want the golden chalice.
and then this guy is pretty intimidating, the magician.
Oh, okay.
We are the magician and
Mhm.
we have to believe in ourselves. Even if it just takes, inching along. And I always say this, it's just free will. I mean, you don't have to embark on a spiritual journey and you can continue meeting the same people and doing the same things over and over again. It's fine.
Mhm. Mhm.
You're obviously not going to be, studying astrology or the metaphysics because when you do start questioning, the
Yeah, you just
3D,
open your doors to other people, new experiences. It keeps going, going. You don't just sit stagnant and just, accept, your truth because truth is uh evolving.
subjective. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. There's
Yeah.
never an end to a truth. There's always more to the story.
Oh, ah, Four of Pentacles. So that's being a little hard headed, right? I'm not letting go of my pentacles.
That's what I was just talking about.
I'm going to sit here and keep
Be
my sense of
stubborn.
security.
Nope, I don't wanna hear you. This is what
Yeah.
I have.
What is that? Speak to the hand. Speak to the hand.
Yeah, I don't
Where did
wanna
that
hear
come
it.
from?
No, no.
And
Like
here's us. Here's what we do to ourselves. Oh God, the burden, the burden. Where's my redemption? The martyr.
there's like, what's that, like sitting there, hearing this whole propaganda, manipulation, and feeling like you're tied, but you really can break yourself free from it.
Good. That's a great analogy. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. You
Well,
just have to open up and
I
like what you
think,
said, eyes wide shut or open or
yeah,
something.
yeah. When you start looking at some of the off mainstream movements and videos of people like there, like
Mhm.
videoing where they are on the planet talking about what's going on and how it's completely opposite of what some news organization is spouting off, or
Mhm.
just like the whole truckers thing up in Canada. You had these walking video people videoing what's going on, and then you could see like their mainstream media talking about these terrorists and they're horrible people, and here you got bouncy houses and kids and it's like they're just terrible, terrible terrorists.
Free meals, like
And here we have Mercury, the winged messenger. So, we're going to be getting information more and more as the year
Mhm.
goes in. I really think um, we're in
Well, Mercury
that
went direct.
90% download. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
it's got to all download and be double checked. And, before you do a system live, right, it goes through all of those checkpoints. And I think that's where we are. And I think that because even like around here, um, it seems like more people are sort of like just, tuning into local news maybe for weather, where it
Mhm.
was, two and a half, 1.5 to 2 years ago, hanging on every word. And there's been enough obvious in your face contradictions at this point to where you've got to question it. It's in your face. And,
Mhm.
that movie, Eyes Wide Shut, is about a secret society. um, I don't know how I got onto this recently, but it was a one of those little video documentaries about Tom Cruise in Scientology
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
his marriage to Nicole and Katie, and what he's like to work on a movie set, and they were talking to actors and actresses that had been part of Scientology and left. And, it's just totally different spins on, everybody's mindset. Like
Mhm.
the leader's father escaped and he's been trying to find out where his son's wife is. No one's seen her for 12 years. It was that kind of mystery thing of, where is she? And he has these like, the leader has these like secret compounds where supposedly he holds people
That
and
kinda sounds like the Greek, situation done with Dionysus and
yeah, it
taking her
does.
to the underworld,
You
really,
know
for
what? It's so weird how the myths do reflect our real life. You know what I mean? It's like it's a story, but the premises and the morals apply to your current situation. And
Mhm.
I think it's a lovely way to try and get into your deeper consciousness about these archetypes, not taking it for the surface, 3D story, but what is that pattern in society with control and uh, mindset of people? Oh, Ides of March, we're coming up on that March 15th, and the full moon is the 18th. Well, the
Mhm.
Ides of March was 44 BC, and Julius Caesar gets assassinated in the Senate. He's betrayed. He's a leader who gets stabbed in the middle of the Senate floor. And, there's all different versions of Shakespeare did his writing on it. And, um, but, you know, you can paint Julius Caesar as a tyrant. You can paint him as a leader. So you just don't know really. But the whole point of I think the reason the universe had me stumble onto that is being wide awake to, who you can trust. And like if you're meeting new people or, yeah, meeting new people or new people are coming into your life, whether it's work or personal, family, it's go slow, go
Mhm.
slow because there's a lot of betrayal in the air with this. Every energy has the good and bad. And the bad side of Neptune Pisces is deception.
Mhm.
And, I've been accused of being Pollyanna in my life, and I'm really trying not to be so much Pollyanna. I don't want to go so far to the other extreme, but, you know, I'd much rather try to take a reality and say, just be watchful of what feeling do you get in your heart when you meet that new person? If
Mhm.
someone is telling you something, how's it landing on your brain? Does it feel true? Because these are
Mhm.
all energies about feeling. What are you feeling? It
Mhm.
might not make logical sense processing in your brain.
Well, sometimes people, they don't, they're feeling one
Uh,
thing, but they may be receiving, like, something else. Yeah, so using your intuition.
the high
Mm.
priestess.
Mhm.
And it's just such interesting times with people. either staying in the same pattern and anesthetized, or kind of grabbing the gusto of this energy, riding the wave
Just
of
fold your
Neptune.
cards and just, like, give in, like like, why are you fighting it,
Yeah.
like, just give up, it's gonna be a good loss, it's time to just, you know, pick from the new deck or
It,
something like that, right?
it's really interesting. It's really deep, and it definitely has connections to history going thousands of years back. I mean, we're
Mhm,
just in it for for our conscious lifetime. This time, this is a first of this feeling of these energies. But I believe the archetypes that reside in our consciousness from past lives, and Neptune is 12th house, past lives. When you
mhm.
read a chart, if you've got planets in your 12th house or transiting, you can bet you're meeting people that are very familiar and from a past life. If you're born with placements in the 12th house, you deal much better with that, boogeyman karmic energy, like you're familiar with it. And
Like, "You don't scare me," like, "No,
right,
I've been through this before."
right.
Like
Right. It's and again, that's sort of falls down to the free will,
Mhm,
and how awake do you want to be? And I don't know if I finished my thought on that movie, Eyes Wide Shut. Part of this
mhm.
documentary and Cruise's involvement in Hollywood all these years and his successes, there was a theory put out there that a lot of these movies about secret societies and diabolical practices in ritual and ceremony are in our face. It's not science fiction. It's not fantasy. That Hollywood stems right back to um, the Vatican and rituals that they would do. Um, so again, it's a spin on a fantasy, which is what Pisces does. And I think that the lunations that we are coming out of and going into are all about take the mask off. Okay. Take
Show
the
your
mask off.
face, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like
If you're uncomfortable because something, and I don't know why I keep going back to Valentine's Day. It's a very obvious example of how society has spun a holiday to be romantic and love and all this. And its very roots are, a tyrant who hated marriage and chopped a guy's head off for marrying people in secret. So, you know,
mhm.
that's
Yeah,
not
because of
romantic.
his belief,
I mean,
"No,
there's a
you don't marry," like, "That's not
there's
good for you."
the tyranny, yeah, fighting the tyrants. And we've got 5 of cups, so part of this might be the insecurity of, look at what we've lost, look at the innocence lost, look at how children dealing with all this school crap right now, the life that they have lost out on, that we had at school with being
Exactly.
playful.
I just had an IEP meeting with Ethan, and Ethan is autistic, and his teachers were telling me that he has regressed in his year of not going to school. Now, in the whole year where I was doing the homeschooling with him, we did PE together. I helped him with his schoolwork, and he was coherent at that time. But when he went back to the regular school system, he was not participating in his PE.
Yeah.
He didn't want to participate in classroom activities, and he just lost interest. So,
Mm.
you know, I'm a little upset because number one, he took his vaccine shot. Okay. I'm going to get a little irate about that for his MMR. And ever since he took that shot, he blanked out. So I have a feeling that my son was experimental. Okay. He was being experimented on with that particular vaccination because before then he was a genius. And when I
There's
mean genius, he was talking at 11 months old, doing walking and talking, and I thought he was like an Einstein, surpassing his older brother, but ever since he took his shot, no, he just was, like, smiling, which was nice, but I was like, "What are you smiling about?" Like, and then, I couldn't get anything out of him, and he was speaking, and I'm just so frustrated because here we are, like, 20 years later, and I'm dealing with another situation, and then the government wants to do this again. No, I'm done.
there's an attorney, and I'll get the exact spelling in his first name. I think it's Kukala, Kukala, but he's becoming known nationally as helping people fight for their children's rights on that front,
Mhm.
as it's unconstitutional. It's a medical tyranny. It's against your fundamental rights to force anybody to do anything to their
Yeah,
body.
just to get, schooling.
Right. And um, that's kind of where I was going with detoxing metals is
Yes, I
integrate.
have a foot bath. I don't know if it works, but I bought it for that purpose, where you sit your feet into this, and it takes out all the metals from your
Yeah.
feet. I don't know.
And one of the things going around on the internet, and I have not researched this deeply, so don't take my word for this, but if you were in a position or, originally wanted the shots and maybe are second guessing it or having side effects from it, but pine needle tea,
Yes. Mhm, mhm.
chlorophyll,
I was actually looking into, getting it and selling the pine needle tea. I think it's really helpful, especially with the was that hydroxychloroquine, the homemade
yeah,
quinine,
yeah,
remedy that you had sent. I think that, by doing that, popping a zinc pill,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, should help.
Sunshine, simple things that we can be doing to try and combat some of this. And I saw
Yeah,
where,
sunshine, especially because light is energy.
right,
And what they did was they forced us to stay in our homes and
right,
not go out for sunshine, and that
right.
was affecting our health.
Hey,
Just saying.
uh, what was it? The
You
D3
need
vitamin and shoot, I'll think of it. Oh my gosh. Oh, I keep pulling him. So we're all going through Saturn transits. This is about feeling restricted, having to mature and grow up, take responsibility, respond to these things that might be hard to confront. Um, Saturn is father time. He's our teacher. He's the disciplined parent. He's the parent that doesn't let you get away with stuff.
That's right. No, I'm playing.
And just like Saturn, Saturday, Satan, those all have derivatives of the same root language. And
As also Capricorn, right? Capricorn is ruled by
yes,
Saturn. Mhm.
yes, and we're still feeling the effects of all this Capricorn, Mars, Venus, Pluto. Um, so it's well, actually today it goes to that 0 degree of Aquarius. So, you know, I think we're on some kind of fast moving train or roller coaster, and things are going to start flying around, literally UFOs, transport planes, information. Who do you believe? And what Pisces will say to you is, uh, use your, does it feel true to you?
Mhm, mhm.
Um, Because what this experience over the last 2 years has done to me is I question everything and I don't believe anything.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know,
and then, you have to do fact checking or actually go out to the field, like,
mhm.
let's say the convoy, you know, uh, for all I know, I mean, I don't know anything other than, what I see on social media and, let's say YouTube or whatnot, even on news. But, in order to know the truth, you have to, like, be there, you know?
Well, just the example of that was I don't know why I'm fascinated by these convoys and truckers. I think it's awesome the way they are. It's controlled chaos, right? They have
Mhm,
a very specific route and strategy and plan, and they take care of each other. And there's thousands of them meeting up all over the country. And there's this one that I stumbled onto. I'll have to send you his name, but he does the live, just going down the road. And
mhm, mhm,
yesterday, you could hear them on their radios questioning whether or not they were going to go through the state of Illinois. That the governor of Illinois had been threatening that if this truckers' convoy came through their state, they'd start arresting people. And then, so it's like this controlled chaos where you get all kinds of bits of information and try to discern, what should you do. So
mhm,
the bottom line decision was they were going to roll right through Illinois, and they're spending tonight and all day tomorrow in Indianapolis. They're having like a festival. And so earlier today, I tuned into the live of this guy, and they're in Illinois, and they got
mhm,
state troopers on the side of the road waving to them.
mhm, mhm.
You know what I mean? And uh, so what the guy was saying today is like, that's the news for you. Like they were trying to create this big drama, like, oh, truckers shouldn't go through Illinois. And here they are in Illinois. Every overpass that they go under is just filled with people and flags and people cheering them on. And um, it's entertaining to me to see that contradiction, because it makes me feel like that old worn out control structure is being dismantled slowly. That the media at some point has to wake up to realize nobody's listening to them anymore.
Right.
They've
Mhm.
contradicted themselves so many times, and some of the stories coming out are just so absurd. It's just so
Well, I think it
absurd.
really started with, what happened with our, presidential election, if you
Right.
really wanna I mean, but that wasn't even the first instance because we can go way back,
Way back.
right?
And I don't think that's over. I mean, I think that's something we'll be readdressing here, um, whether you agree with it or not. I mean,
Mhm. No, I mean, I think it goes way, way back because even before technology, like with, the internet and things was even created, they were
yeah,
tapping into our phone lines, certain
greed.
sources.
Pe- People being paid money to do the wrong thing. Look the
Exactly.
other way. Stuff
Mhm.
this box. Run these through. Um,
Mhm.
and on that note, we got Gemini.
Oh, there you go.
So the duality of good and bad, and right and wrong, and um, communication and circulating communication. And Gemini can be the trickster, and also spin a tale or two.
Mhm, mhm.
So 9 of Cups, but we're all going to end up happy and content.
At least that guy's sitting on his throne.
He's got a smile on his face.
He sure does.
So that's where spiritual awakening is triggering people who maybe they go through the motions every Sunday, is showing up at a church and go through the motions, but spirit has not really touched them, right? They're
Mhm.
really not awake. And so,
Right.
when you start dealing with things like a loved one in the hospital and they won't let you see them,
Mhm.
or a funeral and you can't attend, I think that gets people's attention, It's like, well, these are things I've always done and would expect to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of have to go through that's Saturn. You have to go through some ugly spots and things you don't want to deal with, like standing up to bullies,
Mm-hmm.
and being mature. And she says, I will not date a Gemini. I had two Gemini brothers, and yeah.
I was like, what in the world?
I
And then,
witnessed it. They were quite good at juggling multiple women. Yeah. My one brother never dated a woman who was single. He only wanted to date married women. And this is his
uh,
card. He's deceased. So let's see what we got for him. Four of
uh,
Swords. He's resting.
yeah, he is resting.
I wish you'd get busy. So you ask him, why you only date married women? He's like, well, all my friends have gotten divorced and I don't want to go through a divorce. And so, he would get companionship and what he wanted out of it, and then
No strings attached.
obligation. Yeah, right. So, and that's how
Mm,
he lived. So yeah, everybody's different. You got to just figure out, what your values are in relationship, and um, go towards that to find like-minded people. And
mhm,
same with jobs. I'm leaving a job because we are not like-minded. And
mhm,
so now hopefully the new job I'm going to start, seems like so far we're all feel exactly the same way about everything going on. And so you won't feel bullied or less than.
Well, the only thing I'm thinking is that it could be catty.
Well, there's not many of us. It's only 5 people. So
Well, I think it's been 5 in other instances too, right?
that,
Like
that's true.
mhm.
The interesting thing about this place is everybody pretty much works remote. And
Okay.
so I'm gonna,
So it's not like
spend,
office
right,
stuff, like,
right, right.
Okay, got
It
it.
sounds like I am going to spend a couple of months going in just to kind of, get a routine or whatever. But it sounds like I might kind of be there by myself a lot. So, which I'm
Well,
fine with.
just don't do all the grunt work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then you'll be complaining. It's like, well, I didn't think I was signing up for this. I
No,
know they gave me a booster, I
yeah.
mean, like with the extra money
My
coming in, but
my boss to be is like, I don't care where you work as long as the work gets done. If you want to
Mhm,
work remote. If you don't, they have an office. So I'm actually going to be using an office that belonged to somebody that started working remotely and has never come back and doesn't plan to come back. So fortunately, it's the kind of work that can be done remotely. It's not like you have to be there to greet people or meet people. So,
So
uh,
all of the documents are shared electronically, or do they
right,
have like
yeah.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get out of where I am. This is Capricorn has come
Well,
up,
look at her. Ain't she a little devil?
little sex pot,
I know, right?
little workaholic.
I don't know if she working that belly dancing.
Yeah. She's got horns.
I bet she does.
Yeah, and here we go, 7 of Cups. So dream big. Pisces is all about the dreams and imagination. And, new moon is all about starting new ideas. And, the vibes of the universe support fulfilling those cups and having options. And, I think I really just keep getting the word mindset, that this is a time about, you know, just reevaluating your mindset and not being dialed into somebody else's idea of what your mindset should be.
Mhm. Sounds like good advice.
I think it's
Yeah.
good stuff. I'm really excited about it.
Mhm.
A lot of ancient archetypes playing out in the planets right now. So,
So
um,
just sit back, get your popcorn, Watch the show.
Yeah. Past life regression, they have self-directed ones. You can actually, go to someone with that or whatever. But a
Mhm.
lot of times that will show you something to apply with where you are right now.
Well, I know I had one done, and it was helpful at the time when I did
Mhm.
have it done,
This
and
is a
so
really good time for any kind of dream work or past life work. Um, and just getting clear on what does your imagination want to manifest, right?
Mhm.
Getting out in the sun and seeing all the possibilities and not settling, not accepting an existence that's just, you know going through the motions. We're here to thrive and be alive and
Yeah,
create.
we're here to live, and so I think, the power of the manifestation is, don't be in a place of, "I want to manifest." Know that you already have it. Like, know that you actually, have whatever it is that you want to manifest, and so it will come, but, if you're trying to manifest a person, obviously, it's gonna take 2, they have to be in the same vibration,
Right.
So, it's okay to feel that, you've already manifested them in your life, but don't have an attachment to it, you know what I mean?
So I wanted to introduce one other thing to our viewers in astrology, and these are called aerobic parts. And aerobic parts are mathematical
Mhm,
formulas. They're not a planet placement a thing. They are formulas based on the placement of the sun and the moon. So for this 12-degree Pisces moon, we have the part of success at 10 degrees Pisces. So that tells me that if you did put a genuine bit of time in meditation and being specific about what you want, that you would have success, and to
mhm,
be patient, just like the myth tells us to be patient and have faith. And
mhm. So, guys, if you're thinking about a loved one, just be patient, okay? It'll come.
Pisces is all about, what do you believe
Mhm.
spiritually, and there's a degree of confusion and fog with that. So
I
uh,
think people they just give up, they've waited so long, maybe, something haven't like come into fruition, and so the whole nostalgia, they're just done with it. They're like, "Nah, this isn't my fantasy anymore. I want a new chapter," like
well, energy is funny that way. It has a cycle, and ebbs and flows. And I think the Jupiter element of this lunation and the rising floodwaters, I associate water with our emotions. So,
Mhm.
we may feel more emotional. We may feel more. Um, and one of the things that might be a good reminder notice is what are you feeling? Is it genuinely yours, or have you absorbed somebody else's negativity, and doing
Mhm.
your cleansing exercises with your salt baths and your products, your sprays and smudge like you sell, and making conscious efforts every day, to check in, are you
Mhm.
feeling, what do you sometimes I think I can be feeling down and I don't even know where it's coming from. It's like
Mhm.
I'm picking up something from, like I've been in the store or something.
Right, yeah,
And
it could be easy as like a walk, if you're taking
yeah,
your dogs out, just for a walk, and then, there's, like, some kind of, energy that was around you that kind of jumped in at an opportune time because you were
yeah,
vulnerable. Yeah, maybe it was because of fatigue, and the person
yes,
that you attracted was
poor
fatigued, and
diet.
then
Yeah,
yeah, and then they brought in some other issues that they had,
I know. My vet
So
comes tomorrow to visit my puppy dogs.
aw.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
they're so cute. Oh my
I know.
god.
I'll have to get them up here with me.
Little
One of our
potatoes.
chats. Yes, they are. They are entertaining, no doubt. They are very entertaining.
You're very blessed and lucky to have 2 of them, so I'm still waiting on my 1 puppy.
I've always had multiple animals. I've never had just one animal.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what. I guess I have a prominent Gemini in my chart where things come in twos like that. Small animals in twos, I think, would be a Virgo Gemini energy.
Mhm, mhm.
um, I keep calling the one dog by another dog's name that I had like 20 some years ago. And, I had this thought the other day. It's like, I wonder if he's reincarnated. Is that my little Mowgli soul in Leon's body? Because I swear he acts just like him. And every time I go to call him, I want to call him Mowgli.
Well, he can morph into Mowgli, right? Or are
Yeah,
you manifesting Mowgli into Leon?
I don't know. It's really weird because I don't know. It's just really weird. It starts
Well, it's
coming up.
okay to manifest Mowgli back
Yeah.
because,
He died
life
too young, number one. I think that's part of it is he was one of the youngest dogs I ever
lost.
had, yeah, from to lymphoma. And that's another thing
Oh.
about what we feed our animals and do to them. I mean, they're responding to the environmental changes as well.
Mhm.
And so yeah, yeah. They're a
Aw,
lot of fun. They keep me straight.
that's good. Entertained for sure. I can't wait to have a puppy. Oh my god. I don't know, but I guess we're gonna have that personal talk maybe on the
Yeah,
weekend or something like that, right?
yeah, we're gonna take a look see.
Okay, good. Okay, so, are we closing out for today?
I think we've covered a lot, and it's deep archetypes that are
Mhm,
ancient that we're experiencing in the modern time. And keep positive, cleanse your vibration, try to
mhm,
eat better and rest, do the simple things, and remember, no matter where you are on the globe, what culture or language, we all have a heart in our chest beating, and that's what
mhm.
connects us.
Yeah, because we're all interconnected on a conscious level because 'cause we're all light beings,
And
and
those
so
that would try to hurt us or use us or do us wrong, um, karma's a bitch.
mhm,
And I,
yeah.
I think it's cyclical, right? We're starting to see some of the comeuppance of those that have done wrong.
Oh, yeah, because karma will repeat themselves, and for the light beings, we're just going to ascend to a cleaner dimension.
A more joyful existence for sure.
Exactly, yes. So, I'm very interested to know, like you mentioned, like on your website, you posted something on your blog about like the foods, about detoxing and
And
things like that.
stones, yeah, to carry
Okay,
aquamarine and
okay,
moonstone and some energy about that. And
okay.
just a little bit more mythology. I can't seem to get away from that, but I
Oh,
really
no.
think it's about the KISS method. Keep it simple, sugar.
Mhm.
Your mind, body, spirit, rest, nourishment, get some sunshine, breathe, and
Live,
don't let
laugh.
anybody get you down. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So if you guys are wanting to book a reading with Sunny, you could visit her on her website, lionmountainhealing.com. Also, check out her blogs. She has been posting some articles if you're interested in knowing a little bit more information about the detox and also the healing stones that she just recently posted. And so, are there any other questions that people have or anything that someone would like to say before we close out? You're
Mhm.
welcome. No more lies. You have 3 cats? My boys are allergic to cats. We're dog people, if we can have a dog. this was a great evening. Well, thank you, Shabaka.
I
Thank
had the
you.
weirdest, you're talking about being imaginative and creative. I had the weirdest idea today walking my dogs outside. I have all of this material, um, like fleece material and stuff I bought to make like dog jackets or something. And then I
Oh.
thought, well, what about like jackets for ferrets or jackets for guinea pigs or, like all small animals? And I don't
Mm-hmm.
think kitty cats wear jackets, do they? I don't think kitty
No,
cats
cats don't like that stuff. They like feathers though.
Well, it was like, why box myself in to just, for the dogs? Because people have all kinds of pets, and maybe I could figure out some. I'm really trying to get the website shop up and running with some product. So I've been going through jewelry and some old astrology accessories and things like that I want to share and pass on to other people.
Okay, yeah. So, whenever it's primed and ready, then we'll go ahead and shoot that out to everyone so everyone knows when to look for those items
Yeah.
on your website. So, yeah. Okay, so thank you all for watching, and thank you, Sunny, for being here with us
Thank you
today.
all.
It's
Appreciate it very
always a
much.
pleasure to receive your guidance and your wisdom, and thank
We
you
have a
so
full
much.
moon on March 18th, so we'll reconvene and see what that has to bring.
Okay, good. Yeah, everything's coming full circle.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you all, my dears, for being here with us today, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you, Scorpio moon. Talk to you
You're,
soon.
you're welcome. Thank you. All
Bye.
right. Bye bye. All right, guys. So I hope everyone enjoyed it and um, stay sane, right? All right, guys. Bye.